I'm not much 23,
And I'm Choasassassin.
and this is Gamer Experience.
Uh, I still am sorry about the fact of us trying to, get a second episode a month and just my work schedule not letting us do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, life finds a way to get in the way.
Yep. And last episode was us bringing up things like magic and various physics in video games and abilities in video games and how,
They would be awesome in real life.
yeah. And this episode is some of our character stories from myself, yourself, and any of our viewers. Do we have any emails or messages in our Discord channel
Oh, yes.
about any stories?
Oh, yeah. Actually, Lord Greyhawk, as he wants to go by, sent us quite a few.
Yeah, I'm looking at one of the emails now that you sent me. 3 different stories. I think I'll read 2 of them.
Okay.
Not only that, for our viewers, Lord Greyhawk is someone we actually do know in person. Actually, he is. I believe I've mentioned or alluded to him in a couple of other episodes as far as being one of the most experienced um, GMs and DMs, as he has been playing as long as my father. So, and my father got me into it. So, one day I'll get my dad on here. That would be interesting.
But we need to get Lord Greyhawk on here as well.
Yes, I think we'll do that in the next one of the next future episodes.
Okay. So,
Would you like to go first in reading one of the stories he sent?
oh, yes, I've got one. He titled it A Cheating DM. I was in a game of Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition in the world's largest dungeon, and we were starting to believe the DM was fudging die rolls. We had previously taken advantage of a mistake on her part and made a base camp outside the dungeon. She decided to solve the problem by having the camp attacked by a great worm white dragon. Somewhere during the massacre, her D20 rolled off the table and was picked up by a player who immediately found it had 2 20s, one in place of the where the natural one should be. We called her on it again, oops, and a giggle before putting up the die. She then decided to finish the group off by making the dragon land and go melee. No one could penetrate the dragon armor. Then my turn came. My character was an exalted monk with the celestial bloodline and the oath of poverty. Every level I took gave me 3 abilities from the Book of Exalted Deeds, considered the most broken book in 3.5 by many. For my turn, I announced I was going to walk up and play patty cake on the dragon with my flurry of blows. She responded that I would need natural 20s to hit, which I let her know that my attacks were touch attacks, which ignore armor.
Oh no.
I hit twice and announced that I was using my ability called the Touch of Golden Ice. DM laughed and announced that the dragon was immune to cold effects. I then showed her that, while the name might make you think it was cold based, it wasn't. The damage was celestial. I did tell her that the dragon got to make a saving throw against them, reflex DC 14. She laughed again and announced the dragon had a plus 15 on save and couldn't fail. I then reminded her that nat 1s always fail. With a smug laugh, she grabbed and chucked 2d20 and both came up nat 1s. Now upset, she asked the damage. I smiled and replied, 1d6 dex damage. My total roll was 10, the same as the dragon's dex. It was helpless and paralyzed. At that point, every player in unison yelled, coup de grace!
Wow. Well, you be a dick to your party, the dice gods get pissed, you get fucked. That's that's insane to think about. It kind of speaking of like mistakes, one of the best ones we had, it actually made the party sweat. So you were actually in this game not much. So in one of the games we were playing, we are a very well-oiled party. This is when you're shaman with the perverted spirit.
Oh yes, Ruins of Aslant.
and our GM doesn't really like how well oiled we are. We don't have a weakness other than an anti-magic field. That's really our only weakness, because most of us are casters. In one of the fights we were in, the GM, great GM. He's been on the podcast as well. Phenomenal. Great guy. We love playing under him. I have to watch what characters I play under him because I do shenanigans and sometimes he really doesn't like my shenanigans. But at one point we were in this fight and we were all rolling like relatively high. But this was mid-level, so we're rolling like 30s, low 40s, you know, and just like doesn't hit. Just like, wait, what? And we're all panicking like, okay, none of us can hit this without rolling like a nat 20 or a 19 on the die. Um, what? And we're all panicking, trying to figure out, I was like, okay, is there anything we could do to circumvent this? As far as, do we need to run? And he was like, oh, crap. And we're like, what? So most of y'all's attacks would have hit. I was looking at his HP, not his AC. And all of us just go, that's actually hilarious. None of us were mad. None of us, because it was an honest mistake. Because in some of the monster manuals or bestiaries, depending on which game you're in, the HP and AC for certain creatures are right next to each other. And sometimes in the module books, it's really weird on how they have it written out. So it can be an honest mistake. But we actually wanted him to keep using that higher AC, but he didn't. And it was sad because we wanted that, okay, how do we go about this, fighting this thing that we can't hit? But at the same time, doing 10 dex damage to a great white worm. Also, at what level was their party? Because that's not something you throw at just any party.
We'd have to ask him.
Yeah, we'll definitely ask him, or I can later, or we'll just private message him, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really curious on like what level was that. I want more context to that game. I also want to hear more about this cheating GM.
Yeah, because that's the only bigger dick move I can think of with dice is to use the Jason Fox patented lucky D20, which every face has a 20.
I could see people using that.
Yeah, my sister actually gave me one as a gift.
Did she really?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I've been accused of running loaded dice or cheater dice, and sadly, one of the times they called me on it and accused me of it, I was like, because I always roll behind the screen because I do fudge numbers. I don't like the idea of killing my party, and so sometimes I don't make all of the 20s I roll 20s. I make them like 17s, or just straight up like, well, it doesn't hit you, even though I have like 2 nat 20s from the attacks, but I say I rolled a 3 and a 4 because, this particular fight's actually fucking up the party.
And your dice tend to be bloodthirsty. I think you've told one of those stories before.
Yeah. And one of the times I called it, I revealed my dice, and I had, instead of taking the 1 crit, they ended up eating 3. They did not like me. But to be fair, most of those players at the table were power gamers. Like, they make Toto look like a joke. And those of you who don't know who Toto is, I do recommend going back and to, I believe, our first character story, I believe is where I talk about Toto. I don't know, I talk about him a lot.
Yeah, might have to go on to YouTube for that one.
Yeah, most definitely. Anyways, let's get back to some of the other character stories. I'll read one here that Lord Greyhawk sent us in. I was running a game of D&D 2nd Edition and had one character in it who was an elven fighter knife rogue fighter. Kind of redundant to be a rogue knife fighter and being an elven fighter, but okay. His name was Ged Sparrowhawk, and the only thing he liked better than his knives was to be the center of attention. By the end of the campaign, his charisma had broken 40. In one adventure, the party chose to let some of the PCs, including Ged, compete in a local arena of the metropolis they had stopped in. Those that couldn't fight took to the stands to work up crowd support of the other party members who were fighting. This was very successful, and the crowd was extremely worked up and supportive of their friends. The arena management saw this and moved Ged's fight to the end of the show. As the fight went on, the crowd got more and more excited. Then Ged came out and worked them up more with a dramatic entrance. At this point, it was pretty much a WWE pay-per-view for the fans. Ged tormented his outclassed opponent, and then before making the final strike to win the match, Ged opted to pose and try one more crowd-working role. Natural 20. A riot began as thousands of rabid fans started rushing the arena. Dozens were trampled, had a fair number of townsfolk died, as did the embittered opponent, which was ripped to shreds by rabid fans. After the smoke cleared, two things happened. First was the retirement of the D20 that rolled the crit. It had a habit of critting at the worst possible times. That actually sounds like a great die. I wonder if he could bring that out of retirement. And the second was a character began wearing a mask. He truly believed that he had become so attractive that it was dangerous to commoners, who he believed had been driven insane by his godlike appearance. I've heard stories of this character.
Yeah, I think I emailed him back saying almost made Vega from Street Fighter.
Never played Street Fighter.
He usually wears a mask because he believes he's too handsome for regular people. If I remember correctly.
That sounds hilarious. All right. Do you want to read another one, or because I got another one I could read for him?
You don't read the second one?
Yeah, I already opted not to.
Good.
Yeah.
If we ever read that, it's going to be an extra. If we ever have a Patreon or something like that.
An exclusive.
Yeah, it'll be an exclusive.
Exclusive things. Do have a plan on at some point making a Discord for specifically my streams, where not only will I stream on Twitch, but I will do more private streams on that Discord. I will get more information on that later.
Okay.
The next story is Forgive Me, Father. I was running the original version of Deadlands, and my party was having a run-in with one of the nastier critters in the West, prairie ticks. Think of them as baseball-sized ticks trying to force its way down your throat to lay eggs in your stomach. One of the members of the posse was the fire and brimstone preacher, Father Bartholomew. The fight was going poorly for the fellow, and had a tick got down his throat. The rest of the party chose to help him by holding him down, dumping a bottle of gut rot whiskey down his gullet. And the posse gunfighter looked him in the eye and whispered, "Forgive me, Father, for there are things I must do," and punched him so hard as he could in the gullet, causing the preacher to upchuck the tick. After that, many of the party gave him the nickname Father Barf All Over You. If at first you don't succeed, punch him in the gut till he vomits it up. So it went from Bartholomew to everybody's great space friend, Barf.
I'm half man, half dog.
I'm my own best friend. John Candy was great at that. I am sad he's gone, and I'm sad we are probably never going to see Spaceballs 2. The quest for more money.
Yeah. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
The bad thing. We always want a quest for more money.
Yeah, but sequels usually don't go as well as the original.
Yeah. No, part of it is right now it's in kind of like a limbo state, as it's in writer hell, I believe it's called. Basically, they can't get certain things approved because times have changed.
Oh, development hell.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
Like,
times have changed and you can't say or do some of the jokes you could back in, 1980s.
which I think is a real shame because I believe comedy needs to be free to make jokes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I think, but that gets political, and we don't get political on this podcast anymore.
At least we try not to.
We don't know how my brain works. It might go down that hole. Oh, we tried not to. And if we do go down that hole, we try to edit it out.
Yeah, try.
All right. So, upon listening to previous stories, you don't necessarily have a lot of stories, and I think you should share some stories. I know you have at least one or two stories that are actually good, other than the perverted spirit telling the, you know, little girl or
Yeah.
saying, I know you have stories. Come on. What stories do you have? Like we said in this podcast, it doesn't have to be tabletop. I know you have some stories of just some really cool stuff that's happened, whether it be City Skylines, Thrillville, what was the other one you play? Factorium or something like that?
Factorio.
Yeah. There's got to be a story within those.
Number one, none of those have only one of those has custom character, and two, they honestly tend to be pretty boring if you're not playing them.
Your point? Tell us a story.
My point is, I don't really have any story.
They don't have to be exciting or bullshit like mine. How'd you come up with Hildren? No.
Ilja?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mispronunciation of the Finnish name Hilja.
Ah.
At first, I didn't know it was a mispronunciation. Then I saw the pronunciation guide on the planet that I use. It's like, okay, how can I work this in the backstory?
What's her backstory?
One of three children of Camilla the Stern, and they come from a family that used to live in a mountainous northern village. Of course, the first of their that they count of their line. Actually, I don't know how or why I haven't come up with that legend yet, but they decided to follow Sarenrae, and well, following a sun deity in a place that doesn't get a lot of sun wasn't very popular. So she was basically ran out of town. And of course, those kinds of names that come from those areas, which we know as Finnish, I mean, that's really the only name she knew, but as sort of a middle finger to that town, started deliberately mispronouncing them and teaching her children to mispronounce them. And of course, the whole line was pretty committed to a more nomadic lifestyle.
Oh, they're followers of Sarenrae want to go somewhere where the sun don't shine. They should all go to Nidal.
Yeah, no. Also, a funny thing, they're all became physicians.
So, a nomadic tribe from the north that's all followers of Sarenrae, that's all medics?
Yeah, pretty much.
That actually sounds kind of cool.
Yeah. Of course, I haven't gotten to play Camilla the Stern yet. She's a cleric inquisitor, and her really like her only social skill is intimidate.
Oh, she's stern.
Yeah, that's how she got that name, and one of her favorite ways of breaking somebody that she can't intimidate with words is by slapping them with the flat side of her scimitar.
Could be entertaining.
And, well, Hilja was on the wrong end of those slaps a lot.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, she's kind of rebellious.
Well, of course.
Yeah, her half sister Maj was much more obedient, except being nomadic, they didn't really like to set down roots. So the only real rebellious thing Maja did was join the Pathfinder Society.
Sounds about right.
Which oddly enough has her moving from place to place. And
entertaining.
Yeah, Hilja followed her. And they're both physicians.
You need to make one for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, like one of their kids. Keep the lineage going. I believe Lord Greyhawk has a lineage that goes from series or from edition to edition. I believe he has a character line that does that. I'll have to double check with him, but
I was thinking their little brother.
yeah, that could work.
Yeah, but I want to get a little more into Pathfinder Society 2nd Edition before I do.
Yeah. Well, sadly, you have to figure out your gas situation, vehicle situation.
Yeah, mainly I need money for fuel.
Yeah. I've actually been working on trying to figure out, like, of my characters, which ones do I want to kind of keep their essence going down the line. And I believe I've talked about Robin on the podcast before. my archer that is based off of Robin Hood. Robin's full name is Robin of Lockheath from the Hood.
Yeah,
Now,
I
if you
think.
can get all of the jokes in there, impressive. Most people do. At least most people I game with. But he has a son that is part of the Pathfinder Society. His name is Tobin. Now, Tobin has been trying to take after his father, but also really enjoys hanging out with his adopted uncle, Toto.
Oh no.
So instead of being a slayer or a fighter or anything like that, like his father wanted him to, he wanted to be a little more attuned to nature. So he's a ranger that's working on being as perceptive as his adopted uncle.
Ooh. That
Granted,
could.
I can't break it nearly to the point that I can in first edition, but a ranger with a fairly high perception for most classes is actually doing pretty good.
Oh, I'm sure you'll have shenanigans to tell us about in the future.
Oh, I got one. From second edition, by the way. So I've been throwing around the idea because we've been breaking medicine in second edition as of late. So I made a druid. Now, I made a Leshy druid of the Leaf Order, so he gets a Leshy companion. And I was thinking of doing it one way, but then I remembered one of the things I told my dad, and so that's the way I'm going to go with him. He's right now level 1, but I just applied several chronicles to him, pushing him and their module chronicles. So now he's like level 5. So this is gonna get really fun here soon. Because it's gonna be done before this episode actually airs, so none of the people I play with actually can figure out what evil mastermind I am planning. But he is a medic, or says he's a medic. People don't really care for his form of medicine. So he was a Leshy living his life in a forest. Sadly, a war broke out, and typically when war breaks out, they typically deforestation. And so he lost his home to war. Literally, they burned down the forest. He didn't like seeing the people in pain because he himself was in pain from losing his home. These people were losing their lives. So he channeled his own energy, asked for help, and basically cast Longstrider on himself and was running from person to person across the battlefield. Didn't matter which side it was on, he was running from person to person, healing them. Now, you may ask, how does a druid that literally was living in the forest start healing people without casting magic? Easy. He takes up the dirt that was next to them and rubs it in their wounds, and they feel better for it. So,
Really?
yep. So so now that he's part of the society, he carries a jar of dirt with him. And so anytime anybody's hurt, he grabs some dirt either from the ground or his jar. He constantly keeps it filled and rubs dirt in people's wounds.
I got a jar of dirt. I got a jar of
Got
dirt.
it. Yes. And so he rubs dirt in people's wounds. Very hygienic, works every time.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
It actually does, because part of one of his cantrips is mending soil, I think it's the name of the spell. Basically turning dirt into a
Bandage.
medical kit. I can use dirt to treat wounds as if I was using a med kit.
Holy shit.
I found that, I went to play it, and I was just like, "Why are you rubbing dirt?" And I showed the GM the spell, and they're like, "That's actually cool." So yeah, the druid says he's a medic, but yet he's rubbing dirt in your wounds. So what are you doing? I'm pushing the dirt out of my wound. Your wound's healed. Now everybody's just kind of like, "What the hell is this druid?"
So you didn't give him a firearm.
I'm going to be. I forgot I was going to give him a gun. Druids are only restricted by the fact that they can't wear metal armor. They can use metal weapons. So what's better than a war-torn druid that throws dirt in people's wounds? Let's give him a gun. Why? Because Rambo. Would you like to know his name?
What's his name?
Good and Barry. Now, the fun thing about this is if you ask what the Leshy's name is, he'll go, I'm good, he's Barry. But if somebody asks him again, I'm Barry, he's good, as he points every time to his Leshy. He can't remember his own name, but he's a fruit Leshy. So he produces fruit so he can give somebody his fruit to heal them. He also has the Goodberry focus spell. And I just thought it would be hilarious to name a Leshy Goodberry. But he doesn't remember what his name is, so it's either good or it's Barry. But even his familiar can't tell him because the familiar can't talk yet. Yet. But yeah, it's just one of those fun little things. However, I have another character story that happened a week or two ago, as we finally finished one of the things that we've been working on since COVID, actually. We finished... Shit, now that we finished it, I don't remember the name of it. That's hilarious. But it's a module. It has multiple sets, and our characters were locked in this module. Now, this character is one of the ones I actually have fun playing. I don't have a lot of stories with him because I don't get to play him that often, as he is paired with one of my friends' characters. We run a tag team. It's not a fun tag team for the enemies. So the name of the characters and the group of tag teams is Titus, Ramus, and Fluffy. Titus is a Titan fighter. Ramus is a Goliath druid, and Fluffy is Ramus's animal companion. Now, with me and my infinite shenanigans, I'm gonna let people guess what Fluffy actually is, because Goliath druids have to use either dinosaurs or megafauna for their companions. So I'm gonna leave Fluffy's creature type a little mystery and see if any of our viewers can send us an email at gamersperience
at gmail.com
to guess what type of creature Fluffy is. So in the last one we were running, the last floor of this dungeon, the entire dungeon itself is trapped in time. So much so that time keeps rewinding and fast forwarding to the point there are multiple timelines within this floor alone.
Like somebody's playing Ocarina of Time or something?
Something like that. More so that it's a constant loop that resets every time somebody enters. Kind of thing. And it's been there since Aslant.
Oh, it's old.
Yeah. One of the people you find in there literally is from Aslant. They speak Aslant. They've been there for a long time. So, in one of the rooms, we find pictures hanging on the wall. Now, if you cut the pictures, whatever's in the picture gets summoned. Titus and Ramus were slaves to giants when they were younger. The only reason they got freed is because one of the oldest slaves that was there was an elf that helped spark a revolt against the giants when the giants were being attacked by the Pathfinder Society to try to free the slaves as well. So giants are fighting two sides on each thing. The elf, we don't remember the name, partially because we never came up with the name, taught both Titus and Ramus how to use elven weapons. We're both human, so we learned how to use elven. So we have elven weapon proficiency. So Titus took up the fact of, while being young, and technically being a child, using a medium creature's elven curve blade, learned to use it a size category larger than himself. That's what he learned to use. So, becoming a Titan fighter, he can't use a regular elven curve sword. He has to use one bigger than him. So he uses a large elven curve blade.
Ooh.
Which, not fun to be on the receiving end of that. I took up how to use a bow, more so than the melee weapons. And we found Fluffy. Fluffy was a little bit stronger than the other creatures of his type, so we adopted him, made him our friend, made him part of us, becoming my animal companion because I started learning how to be a druid, Goliath druid. I say that part because we really hate slavery and giants.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So in some of the paintings, there was an Allosaurus, which those of you who don't know what an Allosaurus is, think a T-Rex, only a little bit scarier. So there was an Allosaurus trapped in one of the pictures. So he's trapped. He's enslaved to the picture. There's also a couple of giants in there. Now, our party has talked us down from summoning the giants because we really want to kill them. We're not. Titus is not the most intelligent. If you were to hit him with a feeble mind, you're looking at something with an animal's intelligence at that point, then. I think he has a 7 intelligence and 7 wisdom. Kinda dumb.
I was gonna say, what hitting him with feeble mind would improve it.
No. Feeble mind drops your intelligence. Most people are smarter than him. And by most, we mean all.
Hmm.
Think your typical dumb barbarian logic. That's more intelligent than some of the things that Titus can come up with. Ramus does have a decent head on his shoulders. Unless it comes to giants, then it's kill it. Kill it now. We will kill it. Kind of narrow-minded when it comes to giants. Granted, they say they fought them, but they really haven't. So, our party has decided to talk us out of letting the giants free, but we ask, okay, well, could we free the dino? So they're like, sure, but we're not helping you with it. So we free the Allosaurus that's trapped in the painting. The issue is we think, oh, it's just gonna be, the same size as Fluffy. No, this Allosaurus is a huge. And so before we free it, we buff up just in case we actually have to fight it. We're gonna hopefully not have to fight it. So we free it, and I immediately start trying to handle animal. I get bonuses to dealing with large creatures and dinos and things like that because I'm a Goliath druid. I rolled a nat 20 for the very first handle animal to get it to calm down. It doesn't see me as food. However, Fluffy and Titus, on the other hand, it does see as food. So I then spend the next couple rounds while they're, not trying to be aggressive, but still on guard. So the Allosaurus tries to go and get Fluffy. I handle animal again. I roll, I think, like an 18 or 19 on the die. Bring it down. So, okay, Fluffy smells like you. Fluffy's not food. It looks at Titus. Goes up to Titus. Doesn't hit Titus, thankfully. I hand animal it because Titus also smells like Fluffy and me because we're always together. So it doesn't see us as any of us as food. It's our friend now. I calm it down. We now have a friend Allosaurus, a huge creature. So we know our party's in the next room because they closed the door because they didn't want anything to do with it. So we walk through the door and he's like, hey, we have a new friend. And the Allosaurus just sticks its head because it's a huge creature trying to get through a medium creature sized door. The party looks at us and goes, what the fuck are you guys? As there's now a Allosaurus just sitting there trying to get through the door. And we're sad because we can't get the Allosaurus through the door. Well, I don't remember what she was playing, but one of our teammates looks and realizes I have a way you could grab him. Oh, and she hands us a scroll of Carry Companion. Carry Companion allows you to touch a creature and make it a small, like that fits in your palm figure of it, and so you can carry it around. So we cast it on the Allosaurus, and we now have an Allosaurus in our pocket that we can basically throw out, disabling it, and now there's a huge Allosaurus. So we're now a Pokemon trainer. Sadly, we didn't ever get to use the Allosaurus as there really wasn't a big bad on that level. And if there was, we already killed it. Because this is like one of the last rooms. Because instead of taking a left to finish things, we took a right. Or did we go right instead of left? I don't know. But we could have found it a lot sooner. But no, it was one of the last rooms.
Should have taken the left turn in Albuquerque.
Yeah. But that's just one of those that we really enjoyed playing that. But now Titus and Ramus are level 7, which means Fluffy has gone from a medium to a large and now outstrength most people. There's your hint for what Fluffy is. I do hope that somebody sends in and tries to guess what Fluffy is. I know Lord Greyhawk, when he hears this, he's he's the one who actually ran the thing for us, so he's gonna get what Fluffy is. But I'm hoping for somebody to actually be able to guess it.
Or at least to get a response.
That would be entertaining. So, other than the stories from Lord Greyhawk, did we get any other mail from our email?
No, unfortunately.
Poor unfortunate soul.
And guess what I forgot to do this month?
Oh?
Get an item from one of the stores in the...
Lawful Good. We don't have an item of the month from Lawful Goodwill.
No, I forgot to do that.
Oh, well, that's sad.
But instead, we do have the guessing game. What is Fluffy? Of course, you can email your guess to gamerexperience@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter presence. You can send a message with your guess to a direct message at gamerexperience.
We also have a YouTube channel that you could try and get a link to our Discord and join our Discord, where we take various character stories, feedback, and just overall a general chat.
And also have a permanent invite link on our pinned tweet.
Yeah, I don't understand Twitter.
Yeah, which means I don't really need to do a mid-roll for this episode.
Oh, we just did one?
Well, it's at the end of the episode, but that's pretty much what I'd be doing for the mid-roll anyways.
Oh, fair enough.
So, I'm Not Much 23.
And I'm Chaosassassin.
This was Gamer Experience, so go out and have your own Gamer Experience.